be taking place.
There's a
as well.
historical precedent for this called the Congress for Cultural Freedom.
Mhm.
During the 1950s, the CIA had a program for covertly funding left-wing voices, artists, intellectuals, and others. They set up a magazine called Partisan Review in the United States. They set up a magazine called Encounter in Britain, and in Germany they had a magazine called Der Monat. That's where the Frankfurt School received a lot of its funding. And
Oh my god! It was cultural Marxism the whole time! You only have to Google CIA Frankfurt School to see it. This is this cultural Marxism conspiracy theory from the LaRouche movement, which Caleb is part of. Holy shit! Okay, shit. Lyndon LaRouche, American politician.
All right.
There's so much wrong with
apparently,
that.
It's just you say a word, and that makes you bad. That's the long and short of it.
I like
Yeah,
she
well,
Googled, like the first thing too.
I mean, I guess, I have here, this is a book called Finks by Joel Whitney, How the CIA Tricked the World's Best Writers. This book, apparently published by a major publisher, this book is a complete fraud because Sophie said so. So throw that out, right? We've also got this best-selling book, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s, all about funding and manipulation of left-wing activism back in the 1960s and Congress for Cultural Freedom, all of that. This is also a complete fraud, even though it's put out by a major publisher and all of that.
That was recently a best-selling book too, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And we've got John D. Marks, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, the CIA and Mind Control, all about the CIA's programs, manipulating leftists, promoting drugs in left-wing spaces. But this is all a complete fraud. Oh, and we've got Edgar Sheen, his book Coercive Persuasion, all about how to influence communists and manipulate them, and all the studies the CIA did about what motivates people to be communists and how can we manipulate them. This is also a complete fraud. We've got Robert J. Lifton, the mentor of Steve Hassan, and his book Losing Reality, and about how fanatics can be manipulated and all this. All of this.
Wait. Are you saying that you take information from somebody who pulled the strings of Dr. Steve Hassan himself?
Yeah, I mean, it's like
guilty.
The cultural freedom is a fact. Okay, it is one of the most widely admitted and widely celebrated programs of the U.S. intelligence agencies. But according to Sophie, it's not real. It never happened.
You can look at their favorite source, which is Wikipedia. There's a Wikipedia entry on the Congress for Cultural Freedom.
Yeah, I have it right here. Actually, I wanted to make sure people understood that
Wikipedia. They're spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, this is
and the Wikipedia article even says that the CIA was the ones who are primarily involved in setting it up and funding it and all that.
Yeah.
I mean.
But apparently it never happened. And why did it never happen? Because it sounds like something someone else said, right? It's the cultural Marxism conspiracy theory, which no, it is not, right? The cultural Marxism.
I would have to say we're all kind of like sympathetic towards Marxism, are we not?
Yeah, and the cultural Marxism theory, that's an idea put forward by the Nazis that communists were trying. It was back in the 1930s, cultural Bolshevism. That communists had infiltrated, the movies and the theater milieu and were trying to like destroy the good morals of Western civilization or something. That's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that in the 1950s, the CIA had a specific program of trying to influence leftist voices, artists, intellectuals, activists to be anti-communist and against the Soviet Union, against China. And that's a well-documented fact. And we're not saying there was a plot to undermine the morals of Western civilization. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying it has anything to do with Jews. We're not talking about any of that. What we're saying is that actual Marxism has been covertly attacked by CIA funding of the synthetic left. And this is a documented fact. And, but because it sounds like something else that has nothing to do with what we're saying, she's refuted it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and all these books, all this research, the CIA's website, actually, there's an article you can find on the CIA's website bragging about the CIA.
It used to be pretty like, it didn't used to be really prominent on the website too until they did the upgrade of the update of their look.
No, but I mean, it all just doesn't exist because Sophie said so.
It ties in with the Congress for Cultural Freedom, and then her confusing it with cultural Marxism. And then, what's funny is you came on our podcast last year, and I had edited that into a video where I sort of took clips from all the different podcast guests and turned it into a video about Marxism and energy. And you had a really great clip about how talking about what the Congress for Cultural Freedom was, how it was not the cultural Marxism of the right winger, the right winger idea. And then how these ideas were pushed by people like Hannah Arendt.
And actually, we will play that clip before we
Sure.
play Sophie. Why don't we do that? Actually,
Sure.
I forgot that we had that clip.
I think that it would be good to play that one because it shows that you didn't even have to address the argument here to say that. You've just been saying that.
Yeah. This is a clip of me on your podcast from earlier.
So part of how the left changes is just about the circumstances, but you have to then add to that conscious manipulation, right? Which is also a factor, because starting in 1949, the CIA launched a program called the Congress for Cultural Freedom and started funneling money to anti-communist leftists. Generally, the people that made up the Congress for Cultural Freedom were followers of the Trotskyite Max Shachtman. And Shachtman, after World War II, his followers, one of them being Irving Kristol, who is the father of neoconservatism, started working for the CIA. And Irving Kristol was actually the director of the CIA's Congress for Cultural Freedom program, where they started covertly giving money to leftists in order to put out an anti-Soviet message. The magazine Partisan Review, which was purported to be a communist socialist magazine, and it was all over the college campuses. Every campus you went to, you could find Partisan Review, and it was this subversive communist magazine, except it like every issue was devoted to exposing the Stalinists, much like in the way, people get gone after now. They would wage campaigns against one artist or intellectual who was aligned with the communists and with people to boycott their performances. And a lot of the, what was done in Partisan Review magazine was equating the Soviets with the Nazis, right? And saying that it's basically the same system. And direct CIA payments to pay for their operations were supplemented by the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller think tanks and other things. And various left-wing academics were getting subsidized by getting paid lots of money to have their articles appear in this magazine that was everywhere. And this was the conscious manipulation. And you talk about the Frankfurt School and the rise of this new, and it's weird because on the right, they have this whole thing about cultural Marxism. Right. Well, what they're missing is that a lot of these cultural critics that really emphasized Gramsci really downplayed the idea of class struggle. Emphasized. You had Herbert Marcuse, who said that the working class was not revolutionary; the intellectuals were the revolutionaries. All of this was being covertly supported as a way to kind of direct intellectuals and leftists away from Marxism. And in the process, they changed really the nature of what leftism was. The anti-populism came out. Susan Sontag is a really important voice from this milieu. And so Hannah Arendt also comes out of this. And anti-populism, the idea that average people are the enemy, that average people are dangerous, and if they ever get together and start fighting for their rights, that's basically the same as Nazi Germany. That became a big theme in what it meant to be a leftist, this kind of intellectual nonconformity.
It's on the wall. It's on the wall in those photos. The Congress for Cultural Freedom. They're arguing that this thing isn't real, but there's photos of them with a sign that says the Congress for Cultural Freedom.
No, it's not real, Peter. Don't be a conspiracy
Sorry,
theorist.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just think that's the funniest thing in the world.
And all those magazines that we showed and all of that is just a complete hoax, according to Sophie. I mean, but what is the name of that documentary, that film that you put up on your channel, Fox?
It's called Marxism and Energy.
Yeah, people should check that out, by the way. It's a great piece with a lot of very good information on these kind of topics. People should really check out Marxism and Energy. Very well made film, very well put together.